On the ban of nightclubs and banquet halls, can you explain to me what qualifies as a nightclub? I know there's a liquor primary license. Is it those holders, or who is going to be restricted by this new order? And for the order around the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock liquor restrictions, when does that come into place?
Yeah, well, both of these technically come into place as of today. There'll be a grace period where we'll work things out, and the details will be worked out and posted publicly within the next day or so. Nightclubs, it's sometimes, and this is where why I have lumped a lot of things together, but it's those who are nightclubs know who they are, and our public health inspectors are aware of who they are as well. So some nightclubs have taken this to heart earlier on when they had outbreaks, and they have pivoted their business model to be more like a restaurant, and those are able to stay open. So I can't give you an exact description, but it's really those venues that sole purpose is really entertainment and drinking, and they have limited food options. So yes, it's complicated, and I have been working with the liquor board and also our lawyers to make sure that we get that sorted out in the right technical way. The standalone banquet halls, there's a sector, and we've been in correspondence back and forth with their association over the last little while, and it's been a challenging time for them. And what I hear is that people go to these banquet halls, and whether, even though they may book a small party, it becomes a late night venue with lots of people coming, and it becomes very much a challenge for the organizers to have control over that, and that puts their own staff at risk as well as at risk of being fined. So right now, those types of venues are too risky, and that is where we're seeing quite a lot of the transmission, particularly in the Lower Mainland, and then it's spreading to other parts of the province as people travel or go and have other parties or get-togethers with friends.
Next question is from Tanya Fletcher, CBC.
Hi, Dr. Henry. Are you concerned young people will turn to private parties now that there are no nightclubs and the liquor cut off at 10 p.m., especially since young people have been driving, the bulk of BC's caseload recently, and especially given your initial hesitations with restricting those areas because it would drive the problem underground?
Yeah, and it's trying to find that balance again, which just seems to be all we do in public health. We do know that there have been a move towards private parties, some of them quite large, that are now being broken up, and we do have ways of monitoring those, and now we have a fine structure in place for those as well. So it is trying to appeal to people's better nature, but then taking away some of the temptations that have been repeated offenders in terms of venues where people continue to go. And the challenge has been that some larger bars and restaurants pivot at later night to become more like a nightclub or a lounge area, and those are the areas that I'm hearing from my colleagues around the province become problematic when people are having alcohol. The lineups become less, more unruly, more people get together, and it's very hard for staff to keep the small groups apart, and we have seen transmission, and that's the concerning thing for me. So we will, I think there's also been a transition. We're moving from the summer when we all needed a break. We all needed to experience that socializing and that joy of being out with others. And we were able to keep it under managed conditions, and we were trying to work with industry to make it safer. But we are now at the point where we are seeing cases continue to increase. Those venues, large private parties, are issues, and we need to start pulling back. We know that we can do that. When we looked at the cases that were happening in the Kelowna area after July 1st, there was a concerted effort by business, by the community, to work together to find appropriate venues where people could party safely. And of course, there's no more Canucks games, so we don't need these anymore. So no, I think we need to, this is a transition period. It's a transition period where we need to go back to our basics again. We need to support going back to work and going back to school. That needs to be our focus and our priority.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just wondering, as a follow-up, how big of a concern are bars and restaurants still, and at what point would you revert back to banning in-service dining and perhaps go back to takeout only? And yes, an answer in French from Minister Dix would be appreciated. Thanks.
And I think that's a really good question, because pubs and restaurants have been doing a great job. It was a challenge, and they started off slowly, but the plans that we've seen in restaurants, and I feel restaurants for the most part are really safe. I go out, thankfully, especially I don't know if I'd survive without them, but the restaurants are doing a super job. Sometimes they've been pushed, and we've had that happen during the summer, where we've heard of people wanting to go in big groups, and there are restrictions in restaurants that are quite that are designed to make them safe. And with the people who are following those are doing well, and it keeps the staff safe, and it keeps everybody who's in the venue safe. And there's lots of great things that people are doing, whether it's putting in barriers, expanding into the outdoor patios, making sure that the servers are keeping a distance, that there's hand hygiene, that we're taking people's names, and that people are staying home if they're not feeling well. So I'm very confident that what we're doing in the pubs and restaurants is working, and it's working well, and I hope we can continue that as we go forward.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that restaurants and pubs have generally done an extremely good job. I think the purpose of the orders today was to address specific problems that had developed and to take the appropriate solution, and sometimes that has to happen. And so the decisions around banquet halls and nightclubs, the decisions around serving alcohol only until 10 p.m., the decision around the noise level in such places are important decisions intended to stop the transmission of COVID-19. And we need to continue in all workplaces for workplaces to follow their COVID-19 plans. And I think in general, the restaurant sector has done an excellent job at that.